Hello and welcome to this episode of Hospitality Talks. I am joined by James Mobbs, who is the Sales and Marketing Director of East Coast Concepts. James, I know who you are because I've seen you speak at RMI, and obviously we've had conversations in the past. But for anyone out there who isn't aware of you and East Coast Concepts, can you give us a bit of a rundown, please?
Yeah, sure. So as you say, currently Sales and Marketing Director at East Coast Concepts. We currently have two brands in the UK. One called Victor's, which is a kind of premium casual dining concept, kind of loosely Asian inspired, with 4 sites spread between Newcastle, 2 in Cheshire and 1 in Oxford. So quite geographically split, which comes with some challenges. And then another brand called Neighbourhood, which is very much a kind of late night New York kind of grit meets glam, live entertainment, pretty noisy, a bit naughty, very kind of heavily focused on Saturday nights. And there is 1 in Leeds and 1 in Liverpool. And there was previously 1 in Manchester going back a few years back, which is where a lot of people know the name Neighbourhood from. So
great. Well, thank you. That's a good rundown. Now, I have some questions. About why the 2 brands. And why, as you say, what could only really be described as a challenging geographical split?
yeah, the geographical split, some of that is pure distance.
Mhm.
You know, quite literally the geographical distance between ultimately kind of Newcastle and Oxford. It's quite a long way. But also they're very different cities, they're very different sites. Oxford is in a top floor of a shopping centre in a Westgate, so a premium shopping centre, a very good shopping centre in Oxford, where you've got huge kind of international tourism numbers as well. A lot of people travelling to Oxford. I think it's one of the most visited cities in the UK, obviously excluding London, but it's up there. So you've got this market base that are coming to Oxford for the weekend as part of the tour, or coming from London for the weekend. And it's in a shopping centre, so we get much more of that passing footfall, traffic that you do in shopping centres. Whereas Newcastle, again, whilst Newcastle is very much a visitor city, a lot of it is quite it's tourists from the surrounding areas, right? And you get a lot of, I guess, hen parties and big groups coming to Newcastle for kind of their party weekend. And then there are, in a lot of the suburbs, I guess, what we quite often coin as kind of weekend millionaires.
Yes.
So they like to, they kind of like to go out to party, kind of like to go out, spend their money, kind of, and don't get me wrong, obviously there are, but kind of act like millionaires. And then in the week be a bit more sensible. So they kind of like go out for a party. So we've got these kind of demographics, I guess, that are really quite different between the sites.
Okay, and now that brings me round to what I've seen you present before and conversations that we had initially, which is you have a pretty unique way yourself of looking at how we should approach some of those senior roles in hospitality. Do you want to give me a bit of a rundown as to your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the way I see it, I guess, is everyone that works for a hospitality business really is pretty operational, right? Even down to the finance team as well, and marketing teams. And we previously, I guess if you're going back a while, and thankfully it has changed a bit, and it is continuing to change, and I hope it continues to change more into the future. You had kind of a marketing department which were in charge of this and the fluffy things and the kind of bullshit colouring in type phrase that people coined, which grinds my gears. And then you had the ops team, which were like the real hard workers who did the long hours in the evenings and what have you. And it was this kind of battle between marketing and ops, and it doesn't work in reality. Like ultimately, we've all got to look. We're all in business to one extent or another, kind of make money, right? Yeah. That's kind of the sustainable goal of the business, is continue to generate profit to survive. And to do that, we need to get bums on seats, guests into buildings, whether that's pub, coffee, restaurant, late night, whatever. Like we all need to get people coming in. So really, the guest is the most important, along with the team. And it's understanding that customers go through go through a life cycle, right? When they're deciding where to go, they typically are starting their journey actually online. Online. So they're starting their journey, kind of looking at a website, looking at social, reading a review, whatever it might be, getting an email, signing up to something, word of mouth, billboard, PR, influencer, all of those kind of marketing-y things, right? They're typically starting their journey there, and then they come into the building. They'll come through a booking platform, I guess if it's restaurant and they're booking, and that's where, my role is to try and get as much information out first as I can to go into that booking platform, to then give the ops team, when the guests come into the four walls, the best opportunity to absolutely deliver excellence and steps of service and upsell and understand, their reason for visiting. Is it a birthday? Are they shopping? Is it mum and daughter? Is it afternoon tea? Whatever it might be, the ops teams to then understand that, and I guess kind of extract as much data and information as they can to then kind of feed back to marketing.
Yeah.
So that I can then speak to those people again in a more personalized way, that, and then ideally they keep going on a loop, and it keeps going round. And I need ops to kind of do their part as much as ops need me to do my part, really, is the crux of it. So, if we put bums on seats and then they have a crap time, it doesn't really matter what I do, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Right. And vice versa. If we put a bum on a seat and they have a great time, whilst they will probably tell people about their experience, and that's good, but it's then my job to be like, well, I'm going to get you back in. Like, it's my job to bring you back in through marketing. So look, we need to work close together. We need to understand that we are one team, whilst our roles do kind of merge, but ultimately, we need each other, which means we need to work together. Doesn't mean we have to always get on. Doesn't mean we have to always agree, right?
Yeah.
But we do have to appreciate, I guess, both sides of that coin.
Yeah. And do you see that is changing within the industry? Because what you've just described is what I would sort of think of as like what used to be the old school way compared to with now how you're working at East Coast Concepts. But do you see that changing in the wider industry as well?
Yeah, I think it is. I do think it is. It's starting to make change. Look, I'd love for it to change more. I think there are also a couple of, fantastic businesses that are helping some of that change. And so 68 People, I think, for example, and the work they're doing in terms of sales training and marketing training, a lot of people, still are in the marketing function. They've kind of come out of an ops role. Yeah. So they've come out of working behind the bar or whatever, and they have an interest in social media or digital marketing, and they kind of end up in this role. And look, that is great, and that is one of the amazing things about this industry is you can just do all this kind of massive breadth and width of a variety of jobs, and that's fantastic. But it sometimes does, I guess, leave those people then a little bit fragile. So it is moving, and as I said, 68 People doing all of their workshops and training and stuff is fantastic. And I think we are seeing more, still only a handful, but we are hopefully it will continue seeing people go into the top jobs, going into being CEO or into managing director or whatever we want to call it, that have come through the marketing side.
Yeah, it's interesting because generally those people are a bit more financially based, as we said. They're a bit more financially bottom line minded. What do you think the positives of taking somebody from the marketing side into one of those senior CEO stroke MD jobs is? What are?
Yeah. I think on that, and this is where I think the kind of marketing teams can definitely improve and need to challenge themselves to improve, is actually to understand the key numbers that matter. Or social media growth is great. Email open rates are kind of great, and you need to know those things, but really they're just levers to drive performance, right? So we need to when I say we collectively as kind of marketeers in the industry, need to get confident and comfortable with sales performance, with like-for-like sales performance, with sales versus budget, with cover numbers, with spend per head, all of those really key metrics. Because if we don't really understand them and we're not confident on those, then we're never going to get to the top jobs, because you
Yeah.
need to know those numbers to get to the top jobs. And as I said, all those other marketing stats are just the levers to help drive covers, to drive spend ahead, to drive sales. So yeah, that's something I think for all of us to be pushing on.
Yeah, I think that's something that the entire industry could do with understanding, because I think when you look at the different areas of businesses and how they collaborate and how they sort of fit together, I'm not sure that everybody understands what everybody else does.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and I think if you look, if you want to take it down to like an operator level, there's the Tollymarsh pub that won Licensee of the Year awards last year. They actually train every single one of their staff in all of the jobs. Now, not to the highest level, obviously, but they all have a basic understanding. Front of house knows what back of house is doing, back of house knows what front of house is doing. The people that do the financials roughly understand how this works out the front, etc. I think that there could be, I'm not advocating for everybody becoming a jack of all trades, obviously, but that idea of having an understanding throughout your business, I think, is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, there's a number of key metrics that absolutely matter.
Yeah,
right. That everyone in a kind of middle to senior role really should know, right? Sales being number one, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
That's what drives businesses forward, and sales come from covers, guests, transactions, whatever you want to call it. That's where the money comes from, which ultimately, also it includes spend per head. Right? Those three things are just vital, really, for people to understand.
I think we should create a sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for the hospitality industry and for the KPIs that we all need to be aware of. I think that would possibly be quite handy to have. James, tell me, just before we go, what's the plans for East Coast Concepts? So you've got these two brands, you've got 6 venues all in all. They are geographically spread. What's next?
Yeah, we're looking at another site at the moment, which will probably make it a bit more geographically spread, which will be fun.
Edinburgh?
No, not Edinburgh. But yeah, so that will be good, and hopefully that comes on board this year. But probably again a key focus. Look, and I don't want to go into it because it's a bit depressing in terms of the market and what have you right now. It's a bit grim. So we are focusing, I guess, just finalising all budgets and writing plans and what have you for next year. But I guess a big focus is on reasons to visit.
Yeah.
One of the things we're kind of looking at is we need to create more and different reasons to visit. Looking at the different day parts, how can we put them up differently? How can we treat them differently? How can we change our proposition a bit so that you might want to visit on a Saturday night, but also on a Tuesday lunch, and it is quite a different experience, because we can't just survive on Saturday night performance. So yeah, that's a big one for us. Look, for me, I guess I'm a geek in that respect. More data, understanding more data. What levers can I pull to go from 1 visit to 2 visits, 2 visits to 3 visits, 3 visits to 4 visits? Like every percentage change in those numbers actually, on the bottom line and on the top line makes a pretty big difference. So yeah, there'll be a lot of, I guess, tweaking projects in that respect as well. So yeah, those are hopefully the new site comes on, and that'll be exciting. It'd be good to get back on the opening path, but it is a I guess a rocky and a tricky climate at the moment. So planning too far in advance is also a challenge.
Excellent. Well, I wish you best of luck with the new site. Always good to hear people putting the guest experience and data first. Obviously, we advocate for that all the time. James, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you giving it to me.
Thank you. Lovely to chat.
Thank you.